Welcome to the first of a 52-part series here on the channel. One thing that I am doing for myself this year, and I hope to bring to the channel, so maybe it could be profitable to someone else besides myself, is I'm going to be doing the Daily Stoic. I know this backwards. I don't know how to reverse image on these things. I am a Luddite, which is probably something that I should work on, but something that I think the Stoics would probably be proud of me for accomplishing through the first 36 years of my life. I don't have a TV. I haven't had cable since 2006. I'm rambling now, but look, what I'm doing is I'm going to be going once per week, presenting something on the channel that I found useful from this book. And today, fittingly enough, it is from January 1st. January here has the subtitle of Clarity, and January 1st's title is Control and Choice, and it begins with a quote from Epictetus. So what I'm going to do is read this day and then sort of share some thoughts on it. And again, I'll be doing this once per week, and if I encourage you, I've read several days through this, just leafing through to see what this book is all about. I know a little bit about Stoicism. Stoicism is not something that I have delved into quite as much as I have, obviously, literature or many literary theories or nihilism, etc. But it is something that I wish to incorporate more fully into my life, especially the lesson for today from this book. But look, obviously, I am presenting this on the 7th of January, so there is no way for anyone watching this to partake in this precisely with me. But remember, I think it is important to keep in mind that perfection is not the enemy of progress. Perfection is the opposite of progress. Perfection implies no progress. So, though we will not be doing this day by day with each other, I encourage anyone who is watching this who has some type of interest in this type of thing to go out, get this book. It really is worth it, and partake in this journey. I don't think thus far I have not kept a journal alongside this, but I think it would be interesting to do that, to keep a journal alongside your Daily Stoic, and then maybe do the Daily Stoic again in 3 years and 5 years, like that, and see how your life has changed, wrapped around something that is constant, like the Daily Stoic. The quote from today, Epictetus, Discourses 2.5.4 through 5. The quote, pardon me, "The chief task in life is simply this: to identify and separate matters so that I can say clearly to myself which are externals not under my control, and which have to do with the choices I actually control. Where, then, do I look for good and evil? Not to uncontrollable externals, but within myself to the choices that are my own." And sort of the entry on this day from Ryan Holiday: "The single most important practice in Stoic philosophy is differentiating between what we can change and what we can't, what we have influence over and what we do not. A flight is delayed because of weather. No amount of yelling at an airline representative will end a storm. No amount of wishing will make you taller or shorter or born in a different country. No matter how hard you try, you can't make someone like you. And on top of that, time spent hurling yourself at these immovable objects is time not spent on the things we can change." The recovery community practices something called the serenity prayer. Quote, "God, grant me the serenity to accept things that I cannot change, the courage to change things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference." End quote. Addicts cannot change the abuse suffered in childhood. They cannot undo the choices they have made or hurt they have caused. But they can change the future. And I'm going to argue with one word right there. Not argue. Okay. I'm going to get through the rest of this first. they can change the future through the power they have in the present moment. As Epictetus said, they can control the choices they make right now. The same is true for us today. If we focus on making clear what parts of our day are within our control and what parts are not, we will only be happier. We will have a distinct advantage over other people who fail to realize they are fighting an unwinnable battle. The one little part of this quote with which I will take some exception, not argue, but I think could use further specification. They can change the future. I think it is important there. It might be more profitable for the reader not to say that they can change the future, but they can change their future. And that's what matters, because ultimately the future, the capital F future, is much like those things that in the Serenity Prayer one can't control. Right? So the way I'm gonna take a step back. The reason that I started this series with this presentation, I think that I am in the same shoes as many people right now. I don't like the way things are going. I don't like the world as it is. I don't like the way that the world is being presented to us. And I can't change that. I don't work at any of these large media corporations. I don't run any of these bigger YouTube channels. I don't dub people successful or unsuccessful. I do not decide from whence the news springs. But watching it is making me a worse person. Paying attention to those things on a national scale, to those things on a worldwide scale, is only having negative effects on me and my productivity. There is one more cliche, the Serenity Prayer, in the larger socio-cultural dynamic, if I could be so presumptuous, is probably a cliche. One more cliche that I think could have been included in this snippet is, be the change you wish to see in the world, right? That sort of fits into the ambiance being presented in this daily lesson. And the way that I sort of came back to wanting to do that, wanting to focus on this here for this series for myself, is because this past summer I was sort of forced to reconceptualize this. So a snippet about me in my personal life. My senior year in high school, the summer before my senior year in high school, I had always had this idea that I would be able to earn a college scholarship for football. Not to Florida State, not to Notre Dame, not to some place like that. But there are a lot of colleges, smaller colleges in the area which I live, that have Division III things, scholarships, football teams. And I thought, on some level in the back of my mind, I thought, I'm hardworking enough to earn one of those scholarships. Unfortunately, I'm also 5'7", and not very good at football, and not particularly fast. All of these things, right, that are outside of my control. And it became evident the summer before my senior year, hey man, not going to happen. You're not getting a football scholarship. Still, however, you want to go to college. I'd always wanted to go to college. No one in my family had had a college education. Education was something that at that point in my life I very strongly valued. So, for example, my senior year in high school, I only would have had to have 3 classes to graduate. Instead, I took a full slate. It was free education. Why not have it? So I quit football. I quit track. I even stopped lifting over the winter break. And And I worked my entire senior year almost full time. Most, by today's standards, many companies consider 30 hours a week to be full time, 32 hours a week to be full time, almost universally. Every company I've ever worked for considers 32 to be full time. At that point, it wasn't so. 35 was full time. But I was working my senior year in high school 32 hours a week. Easily. Often. So the place at which I worked my senior year in high school, Saturdays they were open from 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. and Sundays from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. I worked all of them. I worked open and close both of those days, and then I was working 3 or 4 days during or 2 or 3 days during the week as well. After school, right? So I was working very hard in order to go to community college. I had to go to community college. I didn't have scholarships anyplace, anything like that. And that summer, after graduating, I took a position as an overnight supervisor in order to make more money. It was one of the things. You earned $1 more an hour to do the overnights. Hey, I could use that $1 more an hour because I want to go to college. And I had to pay my way through community college semester by semester as it went. I know how hard that is. And this past summer, I'm on overnight. I work overnights now as well. Haven't always, but I went back to overnights because I'm sort of a prick. I don't get along with people. And working overnights is probably the best place to sort of compartmentalize someone like me for society at large. And one of my coworkers this past summer was an 18-year-old girl who was trying to put herself through college. Empathized with it, right? Took me right back there. And really, for the first time in my life, I was in a place to give advice because I've been there. I've done those things. Here's some stuff in that position I wish I had known. And this girl, one of the things that she was too concerned with, I thought, was helping people. And the reason I thought she was too concerned with helping other people is she was 18. There's not a whole lot of help that you can give at that point in your life. So I had to go way back in my memory. And I can't remember when I learned this lesson, but at some point I did learn this lesson. That the best way that you can help people in your life, the best way that you can be useful at some point in your life is not to be useful to other people, but instead to build up the individual. Because the greater the heights that you reach as an individual, the more help you will have at some time to offer other people. Here she was with these lofty goals for college, with the grit and determination necessary to get there, vis-a-vis her working overnights, which is absolutely brutal. Absolutely brutal, especially on someone that age, who undoubtedly there is some component of a social life which she wanted to enjoy. Instead, she was working overnights. Absolutely brutal, in order that she might put herself through college. And still very concerned with other people in her life and being able to help them. The best way to help other people is to be a stronger you. So at some point, you have to focus on the individual. And the way, I don't think she connected with this quite in the way that I had hoped, because it's not an 18-year-old girl type of analogy. I use sports and video games. I'm not a video games guy, but I used to be a long time ago. There's a video game called Madden, which is a football video game. So I'm going to explain this in sort of non-football, non-video gaming terms so that anyone who is watching but does not enjoy those two things, I think, could sort of tussle with what I'm explaining. So in football, the quarterback is not just the leader of the team. The quarterback is the great facilitator, right? In the hero's journey that we all follow in our own lives, we are the quarterbacks of our lives. We're dinking and dunking, we're throwing bombs, we are scrambling when things break down in the pocket. We are the hero in our own story. I think everyone can relate to that, right? So in Madden, every player has a rating. The higher the rating, the better the player. If we're all quarterbacks in our own lives, the higher our rating, the better the player. Oftentimes in football, the team with the best quarterback wins. If we are all this key node in all of the nodes in our life, we're the central node in an outspring of nodes, the further that team can go is dictated by how strong we are as individuals. A 64 rated quarterback is not as likely to win and keep winning and take a Super Bowl as a 99 rated quarterback. So here, with this daily lesson from the Daily Stoic, if we keep in mind the importance of being a higher rated quarterback in our own life, being a higher rated quarterback as the center node in the nodes that we will, the center node in the series of nodes that we will interact with in our lives, the chief task in life is simply this: to identify and separate matters so that I can say clearly to myself which are externals not under my control and which have to do with the choices I actually control. Where then do I look for good and evil? Not to uncontrollable externals, but within myself to the choices that are my own. From Epictetus in Discourses, what this is important, why this is important to me at this moment in life, is that I have to start doing a better job of shutting out the externals, not paying attention to the news, not feeding into the this and that, focusing on those things which I hope to be successful, and really hammering those things home. And if I do that this year, if I do that during the course of 2022, which is when these videos are being posted, I have a better chance of being a higher ranked, higher rated quarterback and taking the team of individuals, which I hope to help in my life, further. The great danger, I think, with this, that is peripherally obvious, but in the heat of the moment, not so much, is where does that line exist between outside influences dictating parts of your life? And I think it's something, where does that line exist where outside things dictate part of your life and make your life, affect your life in a negative fashion? So for example, here, the quote, Ryan Holiday's little excerpt here starts to say, you can't control the country in which you're born. No, you can't. To some degree, you can control the country in which you exist, right? If things are too difficult where you are, if things are too paralyzing where you're at, can you get somewhere that growth might be more controllable? So where is that line through things in every faction of your life. That is all I have for this, the first of a 52-part series here on the channel as we journey week by week through the Daily Stoic, Ryan Holiday, and Stephen Hanselman here on the channel. Whether or not you have this book, I hope to see you for the next episode. And if you do not have this book, I hope that it is something you obtain. Because again, perfection is the opposite of progress. So even if you get this book June, July, August, September, catch up to where you're at. I think it could be useful. And I hope to see you next time.